The FBI says much of the Chinese spycraft debris remains underwater in what they describe as a large-scale debris scene. This, as all House lawmakers have now received a classified briefing on the balloon. That includes California Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee as well as Oversight. He joins us now. Congressman, thanks for being with us. So what questions did you have going into this briefing, and were they answered for you?
I came away confident that the president did the right thing, that we took down the balloon at a time of our own choosing, at the recommendations of what the military thought was the most prudent. But going forward, we need to make sure that no balloons get over our airspace and that we take them down well before they get to Alaska or the continental United States.
All right, so let me bring you back to that point, because here's what the president said about taking down the balloon at the State of the Union on Tuesday.
Make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
So in terms of protecting our sovereignty, we didn't shoot down the balloon until it had pretty much exited American airspace. It was just barely in American waters. Congressman Mike Turner, your colleague there, likened this to taking out the quarterback after the game was already over. I mean, what did we prove about not tolerating a violation of American sovereignty by shooting it down after it had already transited the continental United States?
Well, as soon as the president was made aware, we took a lot of measures, as you know, to protect our most sensitive information, to make sure that wasn't taking place at any place that the balloon was traversing. And they made a conclusion that there was no sensitive information that was being compromised beyond what China had from the satellites. But the point is, when the president had to make that decision, the balloon was already over the United States land, and he had to weigh the risk of hurting Americans, hurting communities, with the imperative of taking it down. Now, in the future, I believe we need to take the balloon down, if it ever happens again, before it gets to Alaska or the United States. It's happened too many times in the past. Now we will be prepared.
But they spotted this thing while it was over the Aleutian Islands. They had an opportunity to do it. They didn't do it.
Well, I think, look, this was the president wasn't notified at that time. And as you know, this has happened.
Does that trouble you?
Well, going forward, I think we do need to have the notification right away. And this is not a partisan issue, because this happened in the previous administration, where we didn't take down a balloon even as it was heading to the United States. I think there needs to be a new policy, bipartisan policy, that the president needs to be notified right away. And in the future, we should be making it clear to China that we will take it down well before it gets to Alaska or the United States.
One more point on China. Judy Woodruff on PBS asked the president last night if this spycraft incident is going to have any effect on U.S.-China relations. Here's what he said.
No. The idea of shooting down a balloon that's gathering information over America that makes relations worse. Look, I made it real clear to Xi Jinping that we're going to compete fully with China, but we're not looking for conflict.
I'm not quite sure what all of that means, but the president spent just 65 seconds talking about China at the State of the Union address. Nikki Haley says that this president is letting China walk all over the United States. If he doesn't get tougher with Xi Jinping, what are the potential ramifications for the future, particularly on Taiwan?
I disagree with that. I mean, the president is ramping up our presence in the Philippines precisely to have deterrence on any military invasion on Taiwan. And the entire president's speech was about bringing manufacturing home, about not allowing the offshoring that took place for the past 40 years that allowed China to develop its economy and bringing those jobs back here, rebalancing our trade deficit. That has to be right up there in terms of our strategic imperative. But look, the president's going to be clear with Xi Jinping that any future attempts like this, the balloons will be shot down, and it's unacceptable, and there will be consequences.